Welcome to Unscripted with Russo. For our podcast, we decided to explore the people behind the narratives. I'll introduce decision makers and influencers and find out the intimate story behind their rise to success. Hey everybody, welcome to Unscripted with Russo. I'm Ashley Russo, and I am being joined today by Lindsay Watson, co-founder of FIA NYC. And Lindsay and I have met a few years ago in the community. I'm actually wearing red today, Lindsay, because I believe one of the first ways we met was through the AHA, and both of us and our love for the American Heart Association generally, but also locally. So I just thought that'd be a little shout out to how we met. So welcome to Unscripted.
Awesome. Thank you. It's so cool to be here. I'm so honored. Thank you.
Well, I want to get started and let people get to know a little bit about you. So tell us about where you grew up, your family structure, and sort of who was little Lindsay?
I am from Southeastern Connecticut. I grew up in a small town, not too far from Mystic, the Coast Guard Academy. You know, we have a lot of small towns here, so we have to use the landmarks to kind of describe where we're from. And I loved it. I'm actually here now. I'm home visiting. And what I loved about this small town is that there was definitely a sense of community. And one of the reasons why I absolutely love the Lehigh Valley is that sense of community is the same thing I experienced growing up, right? So just a little plug to Lehigh Valley. So as a kid, I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. We played outside. We climbed trees. I was a bit of a tomboy. I always enjoyed being outside and riding bikes and, you know, playing and running around in the yard. I have an older sister and we used to, you know, make up our own games and just play outside.
Yeah, it really was like an easy way for kids to have fun, get exercise, be in fresh air. I remember sometimes on a Sunday after church, after the big meal, my parents would want quiet time and they would tell us to go outside and lock the door and say, figure it out. And it was so great for kind of creativity, problem solving, you know, things you learn as an adult. You're like, that probably happened because we were forced outside together. Did you play sports or music? What kind of things were you interested in?
Yes, I play. So here's the thing, right? My mom raised us. My parents were divorced when I got divorced when I was young. So my mom raised us in Connecticut, and I always give her props for this because she would intentionally get us involved with stuff, whether we were rah-rah about it or not. We had to be involved, right? Both in the community and in sports and everything. So I played softball for years horribly. I was consistently horrible in softball, but I played. They let me on the team. I don't even know how I did it, but I played for years. And I gotta say, I played with some of the greatest players. One of the people I grew up with, she's the coach for the United States Naval Academy softball team and led them into championship. Like I played with great people, but I was just really bad. But my mom made sure I was consistent. So after a while, I realized that sports wasn't my thing, and I just loved music. Always been involved with music. I played handbells at my local church. I would sing in the
Oh, I
choir.
love the handbells. That's like my favorite. It's so beautiful.
It is. Not everybody knows about handbells, but it was again that community, right? We were like a family. We used to travel. We even went to England to perform. So
With the handbell choir?
mhm,
That is
I'm telling
awesome.
you. You know, there's just something about community. It's like concentrated greatness that's come from here. And I had great mentors and coaches. So yeah. So I decided that music was going to be my sport. And I started using that when I was in high school because I realized I just was not good at sports. Right. And so I just joined chamber choir, concert choir. We sang, we traveled, you know, around the area and performed. And we have a really great music program at the school system where I'm from. So that became my love, my passion, my sport, all wrapped up in one.
And how did that lead to your next step, going to college? You went to, I believe, LIU, right? Long Island University, and then later St. John's. So what were you interested in, and did music play a role in those decisions?
Yes, it did. So interestingly enough, in the generation where I grew up, it was you went to college, right? It was like the 4-year college, go into debt, you leave home kind of generation. So
I like how you added that, go into debt.
Yeah, I have so much respect for, you know, like my niece and nephew's generation, the Gen Zers, right? They're smart with their money, and they realize they don't have to go in a whole bunch of debt. But at the time, that was kind of the thing. And so I decided that I wanted to experience the world. I've always loved diversity. And the small town where I'm from, there wasn't a whole lot of diversity. And so I decided not to apply to any colleges in Connecticut. So it was between New York, Delaware, New Jersey. And so, yeah, I chose LIU. I majored in something, I think it was arts management, and I thought it would allow me to kind of stay connected to music and but also learn the business of it. And after a couple of years in, I realized that that major, I just had no passion in it and it wasn't what I thought it was. So I ended up transferring to St. John's University. Fantastic experience, absolutely loved not just the education, but again, that sense of community that was there. Majored in communication arts and got to do a little bit of everything, test out radio and public speaking. And it was just really, really good. So I got a degree there and then had no idea what to do.
Isn't that amazing how often that happens though? It's like we have this path or this vision of idea of like get to college, study something, and then we don't really know what to do with it. And I'll tell you, I did the same thing you did with diversity, and I really wanted a diverse college experience. And so I was in the suburbs, much like Connecticut, of New Jersey, and went to NYU because I wanted to be in the classroom with people of all different backgrounds. And I purposefully took a lot of things like world religion. And I'll never forget sitting in a world religion class with people who were Muslims and Buddhists actually practicing those religions while we were studying those religions. And it was just such a cool experience. And I just love that you did that. And I know your love of people and you have such a heart for people. So how did that experience of going to St. John's and studying what you studied kind of help shape maybe not the path that you're currently on, but the person who you are?
It's a great question. I almost on the professional, right? So on the personal side, the thing I loved about St. John's, just what you were saying, Ashley, the diversity, like everybody was represented at St. John's. And there was a great energy, similar to Lehigh Valley. They had just decided to build on-campus dorms. So when I was there, I was the first generation for one of their brand new buildings. So that brought in a lot of different types of people. I got a chance to study abroad while I was there. I was in Italy for a semester and just really got to know different cultures.
Another thing we have in common, I also studied abroad in Italy.
Well, Dad, we have to talk about that offline. I want to know everything. Everything.
Well, the main thing is I couldn't fit in my pants when I went to come home.
I turned 40 last year, right? Well, everybody knows because I don't have it. And I wanted to go. That was my plan. I was gonna go back. And then, the shutdown happened. And so that's TBD for now. But I loved the introduction to history, right? The culture is there and it's very strong. I got to learn so much just about the history of the world.
Yeah, so much of the origin of civilization. Yeah, totally different than our little baby country here, right? Like you don't get perspective on how young America is really until you travel and see what really ancient is. So yeah, I agree with that totally. Well, I'm going to take a quick break because I want to come back and talk about that aha moment of, I don't know what to do with my life, but what was the first step? And I want to talk a little bit about your career path and some lessons learned. So we'll be back with Lindsay Watson in just a minute. Any time of year, the Lehigh Valley is an exceptional place for food, drink, and entertainment. Whether you're cooling off from the summer heat at Dutch Springs or shopping for just the right kind of gift at Chris Kindle Market, you will make memories all year round. For more information on what the Lehigh Valley has to offer, check out Discover Lehigh Valley's website at discoverlehighvalley.com. Welcome back to Unscripted with Russo. I am here with my friend Lindsay Watson, and she has an amazing business that she's going to share with us in a little bit. But before we get to that, she's telling us about growing up, going to St. John's University, being into music, studying communications, graduating with a degree, and having no idea what to do. I think that probably sounds familiar to a lot of you listening out there. So Lindsay, tell us about how you got on. I always say, don't worry about getting on the path, just get on a path. And that change from the to I find to be very significant. And so tell me how you got on a path and where did that lead you?
So I will say when I was at St. John's, two big things happened. One, I got introduced to so many different cultures and backgrounds. And you talked about, Ashley, religions, right? And I had friends of literally all different backgrounds, and it was amazing. And I found my faith in the Lord while I was at St. John's. And that's important for me because my relationship with God is a foundation for me. And the thing I loved about traveling and talking to different cultures is we all have our own foundations. We all have our own introduction to faith, whatever that may look like. And that's important because it gives us the opportunity to be connected already to something greater than what we can necessarily control and imagine in our own minds, which is helpful because when you're trying to figure out what your path is, you don't feel as though you're limited to just what you can do. You know, there's a community to support you. There are people around you that can help you. When I talk to candidates, when we're interviewing them, one of the things I'll share with them is if a client is looking for someone with a degree, oftentimes they're not just looking for a specific degree, but they're looking for the experience of 4 years being away from home, having to figure it out. So I try to encourage candidates, take the pressure off yourself. If you have a degree, but you don't know what to do, you still have something that's valuable there. You've got those years of experience, and that's valuable even to a hiring manager. So one of the things that happened for me when I got my degree and I said, Lord, now what? I got a job in customer service. And looking back, I can say it was the best job ever. It gave me the foundation, understanding how to communicate with companies, how to provide customer service, the importance of follow through, follow up, taking responsibility for your errors and your actions, and then growing from that. And that gave me such a foundational, I don't know, platform to kind of launch from as I grew. And it didn't take long for me to realize, man, I really like connecting people to people and people to opportunities. Maybe HR is for me.
I didn't know that about you. And I have to say, I've only recently really realized the value of an experience being in customer service. So whether that means you work in retail or you're, answering a phone for a company, I now have such an appreciation and almost feel like that's one of those things everyone should do for 6 months.
I was I did a phone interview. I was interviewed by our local PBS yesterday. And one of the questions that was asked was, how can young people who don't know what the it is or the multiple it's is yet get started? And I said, I don't know if this is going to be a popular response, but find a way to serve, to help. And if you think about it, if you're helping someone, usually you're helping someone who's already accomplished X, Y, and Z. Well, then that puts you in this space in the audience of being able to absorb from them what they've learned, how they do what they do, learning what to do or what not to do, depending on the kind of example they provide. But it's still an opportunity to learn and grow. So customer service to me was that. And it was not only trained as to how to do it, but I got to put it to practice. And I literally, those skill sets I still use to this day.
How did you make the transition from customer service to human resources, really, and what eventually became having your own staffing agency? But what was the in between?
Yeah, it's a great question. I had a lot of support. I know I talk about community a lot, but I value my friends. I value my family. I value everybody who's kind of helped to pour into me. So at that time, Bill Brown, who's my business partner and our CEO, he'd started to mentor me in many different ways, but strategically for my career. So, and this is an unpaid mentorship, by the way. He's put in a lot of hours. We started to quantify as best we could back in the early 2000s, right? My accomplishments. And then I just started applying to jobs in HR. And so at some point I decided, okay, recruiting is it. And so I just started applying. Now at the time, actually, I didn't know Goldman Sachs. I didn't know how popular it was. I didn't know it was largest investment bank in the world. I just was applying. So I ended up interviewing there. They rejected me. Then I interviewed a couple other places. Then I got another interview again at Goldman Sachs and they offered me the job and I took it. But guess what? It wasn't in recruiting. It was as executive assistant to a senior vice president in the corporate real estate division. So even though it didn't seem like it was a part of my path, again, it was a foundational move that set me up then to be hired and worthy of being hired in recruiting. So it took a couple of steps, but again, invaluable experiences and skills that I still use.
But it speaks to you being open to there being opportunity, even when it might not be exactly what you think you should be doing at that time. And I love that you picked up little pieces along the way that kind of led you to say, well, I'm passionate about this. I have strengths in this area. Maybe I don't love this so much, but I'm glad I've learned it. And so, what is your advice to young people as they're trying to figure out where to go, what to study, first jobs? You do a lot of that in your career right now. And even people reinventing themselves. I know both of us get calls from friends or community members who maybe are looking for a shift in a career to get back into the workforce. And what is your advice for people in those situations?
So, for anyone who's entering into the workforce for the first time, post degree, or even if you've been a mom raising your wonderful family and have decided to jump into the workforce, there are a couple of things that will never fail you. One, and I actually, I typed some of this stuff down. Find out your strength. Your strength meaning, what are you really good at from a skill set perspective? What can you offer to a hiring manager right away? If they were to hire you tomorrow, what would you do really well for them? Determine what that is. You may have a bunch of things, but I want to encourage you to just pick one thing. You'll never go wrong being a specialist in one thing. From there, you can add all of the different aspects of, like the genre of what you do to support that. But you always want to hone in on being a specialist versus a generalist when you're starting off. So that may be, I'm not sure, so I'm going to do customer service and I'm going to walk away after a year learning how to communicate well via email, schedule calendars, whatever it may be. But find that one thing. Two, unless you went to school specifically to get a degree in something like science, or if you're in med school, something where your degree is connected to your career, be open-minded as to what types of roles you may consider. Let your heart kind of lead and guide you. If you have a communications degree like me and you end up getting a job in real estate or as an assistant, be open to it. Think about how you can use that to build to your ultimate goal. And then the last thing I would say, if you don't know what your ultimate goal is, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But find a community, find some mentors, find some people who can help you as you're growing in that one skill that you've decided to prioritize to grow in, and allow them to help you figure out where you'd be strong and where your passions lie. I can't stress enough, if you find that one thing and hone in on it, I said last week on a panel, it's something no one can take away, right? Because you've decided to intentionally build on a skill set, and eventually you'll be the expert. You'll be the one being interviewed, being asked these types of questions. So that's a principle that just won't fail.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think people sometimes they see where someone is 20, 30, 40 years into their career and they think that's where I should be at 22 or 25. And the reality is it's building blocks like anything else. So, but you've got to grab the block, right? You got to grab it and put it and stack it and make it count. So I love that advice. And what about for people who maybe are looking for a career change or a reinvention or getting back into the workforce? We find that with a lot of moms in particular that sort of take a break to raise families. Let me just specify, by the way, when you quote unquote take a break to raise a family, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. Coming from someone who took a break, I hate to use that phrase because it's not a break in any way, shape, or form. And I think moms in particular really underestimate the skills that they're acquiring running a household, raising a family, project managing everyday lives of their family. So I just want to put that out there, fellow moms. I certainly, having been there, done that, I don't want to suggest it's a real break. It's not. So, but it is challenging often, Lindsay, and I would imagine you come in contact with people all the time in work, in your work life with FIA, that are looking to get back into the workforce. So what do you give them advice on? How do they find what that right job is?
Yeah, some of the strongest candidates that we've had, our candidates have had very diverse backgrounds, and being a mom and raising a family most certainly there are transferable skill sets in there that you can apply to any role that you may be interested in. We have decided from our standpoint that we were going to focus in on helping candidates, even as we interview them, identify those things that are strong or that a hiring manager may respond well to. And so we do so by asking very specific questions to help to pull that out, because what we find is oftentimes candidates don't know the extent of their worth and value. They just don't know. All they do is work, 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 but they don't take time to stop and assess how awesome they are. So oftentimes when we are speaking with any parent, mom or dad, who's been home raising their family, we'll walk through what they did prior to, if there was a history, what they've been doing during, and then what they're really looking for. And it really does come back to where are your strengths. So for example, and I want to be specific when I say where are your strengths. If I use me as an example, about 2 years ago, I decided to put together a resume to see what the heck I had to offer, right? Outside of being a business owner, I hadn't stopped and assessed. And what I realized is while I am a recruiter by trade, my real strength is connecting people opportunity. So that's business development. That's being able to identify how to a good relationship and then how to develop it, right? And so when I'm talking to any candidate who's like, oh man, I don't know what I have to offer, well, talk to me about this. How did you get this deal? Was there anything you were responsible for? How were you able to develop this relationship? And through the questions, we are able to get the answers. Okay, you're actually, maybe you're thinking you're good at this, but sales is really your strength. Or maybe you thought it was sales, but man, you seem to be really good with just maintaining relationships, and that's important in business. So we've got those value-based questions that we ask our candidates that help to extract. So I think what the way I'm answering your question is kind of by explaining what we do, but the real answer is find help. You can reach out to us. We offer career coaching services. Find someone who can help to extract your value so that you're not assuming or hoping or wishing, but that you actually know what you have to offer. And then from there, go ahead and apply to everything possible.
And that's such great advice. And I think it's important for people to know that people like yourself, via NYC, you guys are available to really consult with people and coach them through what the next steps could be at any stage of their career. Something I think that I see underestimated a lot is community work and volunteerism. So you and I both do a lot in the community. Our paths have crossed. We got to know each other through our community work. And it's amazing to me how often I talk to someone and they've been volunteering at their church picnic for 20 years, or they, volunteer at a different place doing the fundraising raffle, and they don't associate those activities with skills. And so I always say, don't think about what you've just been paid to do. Let's break it down and think about what you have done and what that means. And it's incredible how often that giving back can really build a skill. And so sometimes I'll say to people, if you want to develop a skill, volunteer your time. Get on a board, get on a committee, help out, and use that opportunity to also learn something that could help you professionally.
Oh my gosh, this is my favorite part of the podcast. I just want to announce this right now because what you just said is so important. So many times people volunteer for what they really want to do in life, like where their passion actually is. If I were to think of all the candidates I spoke with who have jobs, but then their volunteering is, I don't know, like helping to clean up parks, being involved with social sustainability causes. Like you said, volunteering at a church, but the volunteer is specific to where their heart lies. Like you can't discount that at all. Because if you're willfully choosing to do something and not be paid for it, that means you've got the passion for it already. Like you genuinely are interested, right? And who knows where that could lead?
Absolutely.
It is valuable.
It is. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back with Lindsay, we're going to talk a little bit more about your company, about your new endeavor with Joy Fluent, and your love of weather, because no podcast would be complete if we didn't share your incredible love of the weather. So you're listening to Unscripted. We'll be right back.
Time to take your workout outdoors. Discover Lehigh Valley is a great resource for finding easily accessible nature trails with stunning views and challenging terrain. Whether you're exploring the Delaware and Lehigh Trail or going for a jog on the Ironton Rail Trail, explore Discover Lehigh Valley to get you started. Follow them on Instagram, Lehigh Valley, PA.
You're listening to Unscripted. I'm Ashley Russo. I'm so happy to be here with Lindsay Watson of FIA NYC. It's a staffing company, minority owned. She's got so much insight on jobs and placement and understanding your strengths and who you are. And I just so appreciate my time with you, Lindsay. I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about what FIA does, but also how you've added this Joy Fluent. What is that, and what are the services that you can offer people?
Absolutely. So, it's funny, and I still sometimes feel a little nervous talking about, wow, I'm actually a business owner of a company that's been around for 9 years, right? So I am co-owner of FIA NYC Employment Services. We are a specialized staffing agency. We specialize in staffing for professional services roles. So those are typically positions that are inside an office. Everything from entry level to C-suite. We started off in New York City, kept the name when we relocated to Allentown. We've been headquartered in Lehigh Valley for over 8 years. I picked up and moved with the company. And we absolutely love what we do here. We work with some fantastic clients and have had an opportunity to work with clients for close to 8 years, right? Clients here in the Valley. And so we value those partnerships and the relationships, and we focus very, very intently on quality over quantity. And I just got to give a big shout out to my business partner and our CEO, Bill Brown. Not only has he been responsible for making sure we stay in business, right, and do well, but just last year, we opened a two brand new divisions, but the biggest one being our DEI division. He's leading the front there. He's been speaking on panels and getting engaged and is on boards and committees throughout the community. And we're very proud, as I believe the only Black-owned staffing agency here in the Valley. We're just proud to have been here and have been able to provide quality for so long. And that's important for us because no matter what happens and how things may change economically, we're committed to providing quality service to our clients. And so we do so through three major ways. So that's staffing, DEI consulting, diversity staffing, as well as career coaching and resume writing.
It's amazing the work that you do, and Bill is wonderful, and I've had the opportunity to meet him a couple of times, and I know what a mentor he's been in your life. And so I love the way you and Bill continue to evolve the business and not just respond to what's going on in the world, which you certainly do and do well, but really tackle it head on. And I want to talk to you a little bit about being a Black woman in business. And you spoke earlier about wanting to, you were in Connecticut, wanting more diversity in your life, going down to St. John's and getting that. You and I have spent a lot of time talking through some of these issues, and we have such an opportunity right now in the world, in our country, in our state, and specifically in the Lehigh Valley. And the work that you're doing around staffing and diversity, equity, and inclusion is so important. What role has that played in your life? And explain to me a little bit about the challenges that you faced as a Black woman in business, a business owner, and how you want to kind of pave the way to open those conversations up for future generations.
That is a loaded question, and I'm going to try my best to answer all the points because everything you just brought up, it's like they're all worthy, right, of their own answers.
It could be our own separate podcast, but let's give some people just some things to think about. I think that, maybe I'm very intrigued by the concept of the staffing agency and the HR component really being able to play a primary role in making sure that the right kind of candidates and that the diversity of candidates come to the table, have a seat at the table, and have the opportunity to get those jobs, right? So you're in a unique situation, especially for us in the Lehigh Valley, and I'd like you to connect the dots for people on that.
Okay, great. So let's start there. So I always say I stand on the shoulders of people who have fought for me to have the opportunities I have. And that's a big part of why I do what I do. So my father is a retired Navy admiral. He's one of a group of the first African-American Black admirals in the history of the United States Navy. And he's the first in the history of the United States Navy to have commanded nuclear submarines. It's very important. My uncle is the first CEO of McDonald's. My mom raised us here in a 98% white community, and I can proudly say we are literally one of the families of this generation that has stayed and really impacted our community through our service. My sister is an award-winning science teacher. I've got a lot of shoulders that I'm standing on, and a lot of, it's not pressure, but I'm very aware that it's important that I, as a woman of color, when anyone asks me, why do you do what you do, or how do you make it? I've got a lot of people who've had to fight so hard for me to have opportunity to strive to make it. And I always like to honor them.
I just want to say what an incredible legacy and history and family. And I think it's important for all of us, but particularly for marginalized communities members, to talk about the shoulders they stand on. I don't know that that was always as celebrated.
No.
And I think we're starting to celebrate it and own, because the history, especially for African Americans, is so strong and bold and resilient. And to own that, I think, is really important. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because you do have an amazing history, and you're not alone in that. And let's, start to celebrate and own those pieces. And then you're building off of it in such a significant way.
And that's why I like to bring it up, Ashley. You summarized it well. We've been so focused on working to achieve. But we have to make sure we take those intentional pauses to assess where we've come from, what we've accomplished, and where we're going. We have to do it. And being able to look back or to see whose shoulders you're standing on is so important. So when you ask about how are we doing from a diversity and a staffing perspective, I'll just kind of speak to, what's in my lane, right? So my business partner, he and I come from completely different backgrounds. He was born and raised in the city during the civil rights era himself. And I was born and raised in a primarily white community. And for the most part, shielded and protected, and sometimes naive to the racism that surrounded my family and I. But, I gotta say, the blend of experiences and the conversations we have really has opened my eyes up to, we've all had our challenges. We've all had our challenges as people of color, specifically in corporate America, which is what I can speak to. We've all had our challenges, whether the racism was blatant, whether it was, more so closeted, whether I experienced sexism working in, different environments. But because I have all these shoulders I'm standing on, I don't know, there's just something in me that says, keep going, because my future, the nieces and the nephews and the godchildren, and maybe even future children that I may have, need me to keep fighting and striving with what I have to work with, so that their push and their advocacy can be a little bit easier. And so it can at times be overwhelming to think, wow, you are a woman of color in business, and how do you do it? And people always ask. And what I just say is, I do my best to focus again on my skill set, my talent. I don't allow any assaults to consume me. Sometimes it takes some practice or talking to my community, but I refuse to be defined by just one thing. I'm a child of God first. I am a woman. I am a proud daughter and sister and auntie and godmother, and I'm a beautiful woman of color. And none of those are less valuable than the others, but it all comes together to identify who I am. So my encouragement for anyone who's working in corporate America, from anyone who has a diverse background, is make sure you know who you are, know why you are where you are, and have a community that can support you, so that if you do find challenges along the way, you won't be consumed or taken down by them. And keep that focus in front of you. Who's going to be standing on my shoulders as I'm doing this? Who am I doing this for? What am I fighting for? I feel that that's very, very important, especially for my people right now, especially in corporate America. That's one. But I want to answer the other side on the staffing part. So from a staffing perspective, we have historically staffed for all types of positions, and we've never, ever really intentionally been asked to staff for diversity until the past year. We went and got the certificates. We did everything we thought we needed to do because we thought that that's what companies wanted, but there was no true intentional push or desire. So we just focused on hiring quality staff. But in that, we brought in all kinds of folks. And I love to say this, our staffing history has been extremely diverse. We've literally touched on every category of who we've been able to help find work, because it's what we do, right? So now that companies are really being intentional and saying, okay, we're interested in not only learning more about diversity, but help us to figure out how we can bring in, attract, and retain diverse talent. That's where Mr. Brown leading the DEI consulting division, that's where we feel like we have our biggest value add. We're not just talking about DEI, we're living in a world where we're culturally diverse. And also from the staffing perspective, we know how to find great talent that's diverse, right? So for us, we're still focusing on quality, but now we have an opportunity to be more intentional in our recruiting efforts because companies are being intentional with who they want to bring in. And so once that happens, just as a wrap up, we also partner with companies to help them understand how to support a diverse culture, right? And we're not here to blame or to shout at anybody or make anyone feel bad, but we really are here to help to build that foundation of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and one that can stay, be retained, and grow and thrive.
I love that piece, Lindsay. Every time I'm with you, I'm inspired and lifted up, and you challenge me to want to be a better leader, a better boss, a better community member. And I love the support aspect because I'm going to circle back to our both of us having an experience of studying abroad. And for anyone who has had the opportunity to go somewhere that's different than where you grew up, and that can be anywhere. You grew up in the South, you go to the North, you grew up in, it doesn't matter. You get an experience that you have to look at and say, what do I feel like in this? And what kind of support would help me feel like I'm a part of the culture while also still being uniquely me? Right.
Yeah.
So that's to me some of those life experiences. And it's great to say we want more diversity in a corporate workplace. But if we don't put the structure in place to sort of break down some of those, what might be cultural norms that are no longer particularly helpful or appropriate, but we're not even aware of, how can we support that diverse workforce? So I love that you guys are going the extra step. I'm so grateful you're here in the Lehigh Valley, and I just want to stay tuned and sort of see what's next. So thank you for all that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor. I just love this community. There's just such a special energy here in Lehigh Valley. There's something, and you could tell that everyone genuinely wants the community to thrive and be better. And, I've lived in 4 different states. You don't get that everywhere. And so we're honored to be here and to contribute as much as we can.
I love that too. And it's one of the things I always describe about the Lehigh Valley, and it's hard to explain until you're here. But tell us a little bit about some of the things you love. I mean, is there, particular place you like to go or a thing you like to do here in the Valley?
I love my friends and I love my community. Being home and not married yet, no kids. So the quarantine was, quarantine, right? For over the years. So I just put up a post on my Facebook. Anybody know any trails where we can walk social distance? Because I love the parks, I love the trails, I love the fresh air. I love how people are happy and friendly. I'm always well received wherever I go. A lot of the friendships that have begun were through just random events, right? Because the Lehigh Valley is intentional about community. And so there's usually some event where you can connect with someone. And I think that that's very important. I do love the fact that Lehigh Valley is close to New York. It's close to Philly, but it's still far enough removed where, you have fresh air and trees and quiet. I appreciate that. And I think also the food here is awesome. So I don't know if you guys are aware, but on Facebook, there's this group called Lehigh Valley Restaurants.
I am, and I love it.
Oh, I didn't realize we had so many foodies here. I have gone to so many different restaurants for takeout over the past year. And I've just loved the different cuisine, and you get a chance to know the owners and the family and the history behind why the restaurants exist. And I love that. I very much appreciate and value that. And then it gives me a chance to share. And so I'll send my friends there.
If you're wondering if you're in search of a place to go, to try a new restaurant, that Facebook group of Lehigh Valley Restaurants, I think is the best. You can just scroll through old posts and you will get ideas that would take you to 2030. So I'm in total agreement. I just would like to share, you have a love intrigue, fascination with the weather. Why is that? It's your thing.
Yeah, I'm like a third
It's like
generation.
your hobby.
It is. My grandma loved it. My mom loves it. I'm obsessed with weather. My niece pays attention to it. I won't say she's obsessed like me, but we have generations of weather lovers. But it's just turned into, it was a love, then it turned into a passion, then an obsession. And now, that I'm a little bit older, I'm learning how to make the most of it and help people with it. So last year, I had to take an intentional pause and break from studying weather. And in my air out, what I realize is, as much as I love weather and I continue to study meteorology as best as I can without a degree, my true passion and heart is preparation, and it's helping people prepare. And the pandemic taught me that a lot of the things that we had been instructed to store up on are the exact same things that we were instructed to store up on in event of a weather-related emergency. PPE, mask, hand sanitizer, gloves, water, food. I said, oh my gosh, this is preparation at the foundation of everything. And so through Joy Fluent, a business that I just got started last year, we offer virtual support services to businesses and individuals. And one part of that is preparation. So we create detailed evacuation plans for families. And we have a list of supplies that they can begin to purchase so that they can keep in the event of an emergency where either they have to shelter in place, which we all know that term now, or evacuate. And so, yes, I love it. You're probably going to see more videos, more content.
And I should mention too, you also have channeled that love of the weather into being a significant volunteer with the American Red Cross. And you really have put that passion into action. So you're giving back to the community. You've now got a business model built out of it using that passion. And I think that's an important message for people. You've channeled it. So it doesn't seem like just a hobby or an obsession, but something you're really using to make a difference. So, well, before we let you go, Lindsay, although I feel like I could talk to you forever, I would love to ask you a few rapid fire questions that you have not seen, that we have not told you about. I know that immediately is making you nervous, but you're going to be great. You ready?
Sure.
All right. The first one we just established, but we'll do it anyway. What is your favorite hobby?
Studying weather and preparedness and buying stuff to store for emergency related events that I've never truly been impacted by, but if I am, I'll be ready, and sharing that with others.
What is one food that you could not live without?
One? Eggs.
Eggs. Interesting. Any particular form the eggs would come in, or just to have a dozen eggs on hand?
No, because you could do so much with it.
That's a really good answer. Solid. All right. What actress would you cast to play you in a movie about your life?
I have no idea. Oh my gosh, who's tall? Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. Lord. Can we come back to that?
We can come back to that.
I know that's not rapid fire, is it?
That's okay. If you didn't have the job you have now, what would you be doing instead?
I'd be a meteorologist, a singing meteorologist.
All right. Name one person who inspires you.
One? Well, I've already spoken about everyone. One is very hard. So I'm just...
Give me a few.
Thank you. The Lord for me, Bill Brown, my mom, my dad, my sister, Joaquin, Sasha, and Jaden, my nephew, my niece, and my godson.
Beautiful. Such a great family. Well, we're going to leave it to be determined who would play you in a movie.
Yeah, maybe we could do a poll or something.
Maybe we'll do a poll. Let's see what our audience thinks. Who should play you in a movie? Whoever they are, they better be strong and dynamic and passionate and beautiful and tall.
And love dogs. They have to love dogs.
And love dogs. I love it. Well, Lindsay Watson, thank you for being on Unscripted. Thank you for your authenticity, your openness, and for sharing so much of the great work that you're doing in our community. We wish you the best.
Thank you. So fun being here. Really appreciate it. You guys are the best.
You've been listening to Unscripted with Russo. Until next time, everybody.